Recess is over. We now stand in open session. Our next item is a TAP resolution. This is a
housekeeping matter. Town council made a motion last time. Last council meeting, there was a motion to accept a $206,000 plus grant offered by VDOT for the TAP 21 project. The motion was made and we moved forward. However, VDOT does have the following statement that they sent to me. It says, unfortunately, Town Council's October 17, 2016 resolution endorsing the project does not contain signatory authority for the agreement. And last month, when you guys authorized the acceptance of the grant, it did not specifically have in the motion signatory authority for the town manager.
The motion, do you know?
I think you did.
Well, then I'm in the motion to include the signatory issue.
That's all I need.
and just for the audiences here, that grant, this project is for what in layman's terms? It's a $206,000 grant.
Curb and gutter in between the basketball courts and the baseball fields, and then back to Oak Street.
Very good. And I had somebody ask me the other day about walking trails. Are we going to get walking for the walkers in Blackstone?
October 16th, you will have a public hearing for the second phase of this application, and that phase will go for the remainder around the ball fields to the primary school and back up Jackson Street. So what we're getting ready to construct is phase one. Phase two would
It's the start of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right.
Yep.
It's my dream that it's marked every 10th of a mile.
Oh, I love it. I
that
love
kind
it.
of thing.
And we're going to have antique light poles, and hopefully we can get people to dedicate for those as well.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, good.
And light poles are part of phase 1 and 2.
Excellent. Motion has been made and duly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yes.
Is that good with that amount, that grant number? With that amount of money?
Our match is $52,000.
Well, no, he's asking, do we need to,
Do you feel the necessity to
different.
poll the council,
Poll it.
Mayor?
I absolutely should poll the council, starting with Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Good point. Thank you. Next is the request for a joint public. This is unusual. We usually have the planning commission and town council hearings separately. We've got a little bit of an emergency situation here with a homeowner that's sold a house and may have to find somewhere to live.
We've had a couple from here in town who have sold their home in the town of Blackstone, and they own a building in the downtown area, and our current ordinance requires a conditional use permit be issued before they can build in a second floor apartment. These individuals have sold their house, and I think they have to be moved by the 1st of November. And so trying to do some legwork and get proper advertising, we would have to hold a joint public hearing the last week in October between the Planning Commission and the Town Council to make our advertising and timing requirements work. What we're asking for you guys is to consider October 23rd. I think we'll have a quorum from the Planning Commission. I know, Mayor, it's a Monday night and it's not ideal for you.
should be quick.
I'm good.
6 o'clock, joint public hearing between the Planning Commission and the Town Council, and that's really the only way for advertising requirements and legal requirements to do it. It is out of the ordinary, but it is the way the town did it for years and years and years.
Walmart
yeah.
was done that way.
Yep. So we're doing it a little different and out of sync, but we're asking you guys, and you don't need to continue this meeting until then because you'll have the 16th meeting in the interim, but we would like to have a joint public hearing with the Planning Commission on the 23rd at 6 o'clock.
Mr. Green has moved and Mr. Nash has seconded, and you predicted, you said downtown apartments are going to be an issue. You saw that coming. Saw it coming. All in favor say aye of having the joint meeting. Aye. All opposed? That carries 7-0. And last but not least, the ice cream man, the itinerant, the P&S truck, the itinerant merchant license, also known as a peddler's tax.
I'll do the preliminaries, and Tessie's done most of the homework. We have in your packet a cost comparison for a peddler's license, which in some communities is different from the itinerant merchants, but for our purposes, they are the same. And right now, our ordinance requires a $500 annual payment for the business license and a $5,000 bond and surety. And Mr. Johnson, and that's what brought this up, is the food truck. In the food truck, he did provide the $5,000 surety bond, and he has paid a $125, which was the reduced amount for the quarter, the prorated figure. We talked to Tessie because we have some questions about on peddler's license, and the intention from council, we understand, was not to change the fees. So we don't need to change that ordinance, but there were some questions about how to locate, where to locate, and what is permissible, what's not permissible with any itinerant merchant. Right now, we require itinerant merchants to locate on private property in the BG zoning district, and that's primarily the fireworks.
Yeah, Yeah, okay.
Okay, but there'd been some question about ice cream trucks and such things who are also liable to get peddler's license. And we all know the ice cream truck drives right up 8th Street, 10th Street, 7th Street, 6th Street,
Stop
parks
on
in
the
the
street.
parking lot across from Wigglesworth during baseball games. And I think that the intention for Tessie to be here was to discuss what can and cannot be done as far as the town requirements about using the public right-of-way and public property.
And also, before Tessie takes the microphone, are we gonna make the ice cream truck pay $500
Yeah, but as I understood from the
starting January 1st?
starting January 1st. We're gonna start a clean slate on January 1st. The Schwann's truck, ice cream truck, Mr. Johnson. There's the three specifically that I know.
Okay, I have a question if I may.
I think I know what you're gonna ask. You're gonna ask, we're gonna go back and get the 500 from those who,
Well, I don't understand why Mr. Johnson was charged for the prorated time, and I saw the ice cream truck on Main Street yesterday.
Because the town council instructed us that on January 1st that we would begin that process.
that is accurate.
They've been paying their.
Now, if y'all want me to go back and get them, I can do that, but they've been paying a business license.
I don't see how, look, man, I'm gonna have some angry women at the house, about this, but I don't see the difference. I don't see why the ice cream truck man is not having to pay at least what Mr. Johnson paid.
He will.
That might be a nice little add-on, because to be fair, because you're right. I mean, if we prorated Mr. Johnson, he paid 125.
He brought me a check for $125. That was the direction.
It was, like I said, because our orders doesn't distinguish between the two, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to prorate everybody that we see in town.
That's fine. I can do that until January 1.
Yes,
and then,
January
yeah,
1,
that's
we're gonna
fine.
get religious. We're gonna be religious about it.
Yeah, that's fine. But January 1, the business license, as you know, are going to be town manager's responsibility now. Just because we're going to have a new treasurer.
Right.
And at some point, maybe we can do it differently because so much of business licenses are tied to zoning. So much of business licenses are related to zoning, and there's a disconnect. Hey, guys, make sure they get a zoning permit, and they don't. And the next thing you know, you've got Schwann's running around town without paying an itinerant merchant. So we got to do that.
I'm sorry to cut you off, sir. I have run into some clarity issues here lately, so therefore I move that all itinerant merchants pay $125 for the remainder of this calendar year,
Okay, Mayor.
If they are currently
if
unpaid.
they have not paid the fee as of yet.
Okay, Ms. Thompson, second that motion, okay? And legal counsel, please.
Bit of legal advice.
Yes.
I would advise that you amend that motion to say itinerant merchants and peddlers.
So moved.
We're treating them the same, correct? All
That
right.
would be my
You
advice.
second that motion? All right, motion been made and seconded. That's a very good motion, I think. It's important. Let's go roll call vote, starting with Mr. Scott. Okay, of course, the only challenge really now you have directions, the challenge is, if you see the Swan truck, you call Philip. Madam Attorney.
Yes, thank you. At the last meeting, council had asked me to brief them about the peddlers and itinerant merchants text that the town currently has and what can be done if the council wants to do anything in the future. Are there distinctions? Can there be legal distinctions between different peddlers, different itinerant merchants, so on and so forth? Just to give you all a little bit of background, this actually comes from the Virginia Code. There's a specific statute that's directly on point, and that is Virginia Code 58.1-3717, which directly governs peddlers and itinerant merchants. And it talks about what is a peddler, what is an itinerant merchant, and kind of what is the difference between them. The maximum fee that can be imposed is the $500 a year. Now, there is an exception in this code section, and it's kind of like the agricultural exception. So, for example, like farmers markets.
Oh, the Thompson brothers come into Town Square.
Yeah, and so there is an exception in section D there's two exceptions. Number one is a peddler at wholesale, someone that comes in and peddles to retail merchants. And then also people who offer for sale in person or by their employees ice, wood, charcoal, meats, milk, butter, eggs, poultry, game, vegetables, fruits, or other family supplies of a perishable nature or farm products grown or produced by them and not purchased by them for sale. And then there's also an exception for a dairyman who uses the streets of any city.
Dairyman?
That's what it says.
Dairyman, does that mean the ice cream truck?
No, it does not mean the ice cream truck. And at first, that's what I was wondering. Does that mean the ice cream truck?
Talking
But
about like a milkman. or
Milkman.
something, right?
yes,
Old Virginia Dairy.
that's the milkman. And it specifically says, yeah, milk, butter, cream, and eggs. And
If it's produced by them.
that is my
Which
understanding.
would be the Thompson. The Thompson brothers grow their stuff.
If they
At your
grow it
place,
all.
y'all have a lot of stuff y'all grow.
If they grow it all.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha, okay.
is not-
Gotcha, okay.
Now, it is, I will say, some of it is a little bit ambiguous, specifically the ice, wood, charcoal, meats, milk, butter, eggs. That part of it, it is a little bit ambiguous. There is some room for interpretation there. But, so long story short, can you regulate certain things with itinerant merchants and peddlers? Yes, you can. Specifically, E states that you all may designate, and this has to be by an ordinance, you all may designate the streets or other public places on or in which all licensed peddlers or itinerant merchants may sell or offer for sale their goods, wares, or merchandise.
Can I stop you right there?
Yes.
So Philip is proposing that we allow it on private BG zoned,
I like that.
and so you're saying that we need to codify that in the form of an ordinance?
Correct.
Okay.
Or specifically, it would be a section of the existing ordinance.
If it's a section of it, if we're amending an ordinance to have to go through public hearings, we know.
It's wise. But for prime example, what you're saying, for example, the parking lot of the Curry Record, which is big. If somebody want to come in, that's private property BG. You don't want them on the curb where my customers may park on the street.
That's private, that's
Right,
public.
that's public.
on
So
the street.
I like what you're proposing.
But I could say, come to my car lot, you get free hot dogs, and I could hire Peanut to
Yeah.
cook the hot dogs.
No problem.
Yeah.
But here's the question, and I think that the differentiation, we talked about this a little last time, because I think the intention is not to run the ice cream man out of town.
No.
I think the intention is to find happy balance. So Peanut can approximately do what he wants to do, but at the same time, we can have our food that's declared not prepared foods that could drive up and down the town streets and sell ice cream, but at the same time, prepared foods would have to have designated locations.
Well, I'm sorry that you lost me, because it doesn't seem fair to me that the man can ride up and down the street and park wherever he wants to and sell his wares.
Then you need to let Peanut park wherever he wants, and on any location.
I say
of
you tell the
town.
ice cream man he can't come to town.
Well, Peanut can drive around town and make a little horn like the ice cream does. So the ice cream guy's just mobile. He only stops when he's flagged down. Peanut could do the same
That
thing.
man stops, he stops in front of my house because he knows
Oh,
what's going
right,
on.
right, right.
Trust me,
Come running out.
trust me.
Peanut can't do that because of the way the truck is designed.
Okay, that's true. The trailer, you're right. Okay, true.
He doesn't miss a lick in Blackstone after school hours. He doesn't stop in front of that house. Do-do-do-do-do-do. I hear it in my sleep.
She's trying to give you some options, but as it stands, that we're trying to do, I think that there's some resistance to saying, hey, how come ice cream man can do it, but I can't do it? And so in a matter of fairness, we got to either differentiate between the two activities or disallow one of the activities to occur in town, or make it fair for everybody and leave it open-ended at any street or any public place, because I can tell you that ice cream man.
Not that I think that Mr. Johnson would park on Main Street in front of a restaurant, but you can't allow that.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can't,
I agree.
You know,
You
and I
can't.
know he wouldn't. I know he's a good man. I know he wouldn't. But you can't leave that up to his
could
interpretation.
be 20 other food trucks that
Right,
come through
right.
town. There's a taco truck that goes to Crew.
Crew,
every
big
weekend,
time,
park right in front
big
of
time.
Acapulco's.
Yep.
Right. So
Right.
I don't see how you can do that. And if
We're
the
not
consequence is,
advocating doing that.
if
We're
the consequence
advocating
is-
differentiating between the two.
okay,
But it's gonna create a differentiation between prepared foods and non-prepared foods.
okay. So if Mr. Johnson wants to come to my house and come up with his own brand of music that is etched into my gray matter, that and the kids can run out there and buy ice cream.
Not with what we're proposing.
Okay. So what are you proposing?
If he's doing soft serve ice cream, no. If it's
No, what if it's ice cream sandwiches?
Ice cream sandwiches, then he would be allowed to do that based on what we're discussing.
But Mr. Scott is saying that basically the nature of his vehicle and his operation is he can't ride the streets and blow a horn and have people coming out of their house to buy hot dogs.
It's unlike.
He's more stationary. The ice cream truck is very mobile. Mr. Johnson's very stationary. He has
You gotta differentiate them, or you gotta let them both do it,
Yeah.
irregardless of
So
location.
then what are Schwans? Are they prepared food?
They're not prepared.
Swans, in my
Selling
opinion,
frozen
is
food.
cattle.
They're frozen, but I mean,
Prepared, it's not
It's like
prepared.
buying a hamburger patty from
I don't see the difference in a Swans truck and an EPS truck.
It's not. It's yeah, exactly.
delivery. Yeah. But you gotta find, from what Chelsea's providing you, if you either let it all happen, or differentiate between the two, or eliminate one of
I
them.
think you gotta
You haven't made-
differentiate.
What do you favor
You gotta make-
differentiation?
Well, here's a thought that I have too, is that instead of, and I'm just throwing this out there, this is not something Philip and I had discussed, but there's also the possibility of what you would have to do is you would have to have different, basically levels of merchants, and you would have to have specific definitions for those different levels of merchants. And where I got that from was actually there is a Virginia Beach ordinance that is on point. Now, Virginia Beach ordinance doesn't necessarily say that, you can't go on this street, you can't go on that street, but what it does say is, zoning approval may be required. And so perhaps the way to solve the issue wouldn't be so much eliminating it, but tying it more to a zoning approval issue and saying, well, this person can go here, this person can go there, but it's actually more tied into zoning instead of actually restricting the public ways, which you all can do too.
Right.
But
You're over my
that may
pay
be a
grade.
cleaner
You-
place.
You're way over my pay grade.
Yeah.
Because we've got, I know at one time, I don't know if Mrs. Early, does she still do ice cream? She's got she had a beautiful ice cream store
Yeah,
there.
not lately.
Well, let's say she decides she wants to do it, and then the Houts have a nice ice cream store on Broad Street. So what's keeping the ice cream man from pulling up there and having dollar ice
The
cream
congestion,
Sundays?
congestion, narrow street. That's
I mean,
my
but what's
answer.
keeping him from parking in front of the store
Right, legally nothing right now.
and selling, undercutting our merchant by a third or a half or whatever, or doing the same thing, someone coming down and parking in front of Mr. Nash's garden center,
well, sure.
So, I really I'm struggling with it. I say you throw the ice cream man out of town because we've got a problem. I'm sorry. When we get down, when we start splitting hairs, who's gonna enforce this? Who is gonna take the time to enforce it? I mean, we're doing an adequate job of writing tickets and following crime and doing that. We're gonna put this on the police department? We're gonna overtask the town manager? I mean,
No, we don't want to do that, but I do
So-
think that, and again, I was saying this to Chief here, I do think there are times when a police officer has to have a level of curiosity, and if it's a slow day, they can say, hey, Philip, just want to let you know, so, has to be sometimes, I think our police officers and our town public works guys have got to, they see things like but you're right, it's tough.
Here's my, maybe I should quit thinking, but one thought I had, one thing that the council could do if you all are concerned about the people parking in front of a business, you all could restrict that road, the road where all the restaurants are on, and say,
Main Street.
yeah, no peddlers or itinerant merchants on Main Street, which would still, allow the ice cream man to come to your house
Sure.
and to residences.
but how do you, I understand that, and it's a great idea. That would eliminate a lot of grief with the merchants storming town hall, okay? But how do you tell a food truck of any kind that he can't park in front of my house and blast the music out there to tell us he's got burgers and he's got comfort food out there and all I gotta do is walk out the door? How can you tell him he can't do that?
If,
Opposed to the ice cream truck does it three
well,
times a week.
My thought about it would be if you all wanted to restrict any access at all to that main street, then that would solve your problem. And then I don't know necessarily that you all would need that distinction
I
at
think
that
she's saying then
point.
food trucks can park in front of your house if
Okay.
they want.
Yeah, food trucks, but then the ice cream truck
As long as
could
it's
too.
fair to,
Yeah.
That's all we want, all of us here want to achieve that. Is there any way we could have something before the council to look at in writing, succinct as possible for October 16th? Because it's a lot, I have to like, even when y'all talking, I have to think visually, peanut, ice cream, prepared food, soft serve, it's,
Yeah.
good problems to have. People want to come to Blackstone and do business, good problems to
I have a
have.
question on
Yes,
that.
Mr. Scott.
You said stopping people from doing stuff on Main Street. Wouldn't that stop people from being in the Happy Time parking lot, doing, smoking butts and stuff?
Because it's on private property.
It's on private property.
Okay.
And I would also, if you're gonna do Main, I would also say, because the smart folks will pull it right beside the corner kitchen on Broad. You gotta do Broad, Elm,
Yeah,
Irvin.
you gotta do your cross.
You gotta do the cross streets too. You know how it is. But anyway, I thank you for very tedious work on that, good work on that. Very important. Any members of council have any preference besides adjournment? And I'm the reason this meeting went long. It's my fault, but and I apologize, but I wanted to hear about it. Anything else?
Are we able to talk about anything?
It's a continued meeting. You may talk about anything you
And
wish.
This isn't down on anybody or taking sides with anything, but I've just had 8 to 10 calls today, and I want to know the story as to what in the world, what happened with the attorney fees and the $135 or whatever. Just explain it so I can explain it to other people that read
I'll
into
explain
things.
Well, and I want to specify too, because I had some comments on social media. You do great work for us at very good prices, and what we're paying in legal fees is very fair.
Yeah.
I was bothered after the meeting, when I saw that we had to research into First Amendment rights. I was just personally troubled by that. I called
I
you
just
about
want to
that.
know what
I'll
it's
give the
about.
background and then Tessie can discuss the discussions that she's had. We had a committee meeting that went pretty much south, and there was quite a bit of discord at a committee meeting. And the question was, when an individual's disruptive, what are we allowed to do? It's not First Amendment, it's not can they speak, it's disruptive, folks. And I was approached by the chairman of the committee and said, what do we do when it goes south like this? And I said, I don't know, I'll call Tessie and find out. And what do we do? And then Tessie can describe it.
So it wasn't limiting
No, absolutely not.
Richard
No.
Eaton from coming up here speaking. It
No.
was if you're out of order.
Disruptive, I think.
Okay.
Correct.
So it was strictly
That's all
about
I
the
want.
way they were speaking.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't.
over, just out of control.
Okay.
We had a
We
committee
had an
meeting
issue
that
in
goes
here that you handled very well. We had some profanity.
Oh, that was terrible.
Okay,
because I
but the
personally-
question is, if it went beyond that, what are your rights? What are my rights, or Mr. Nash's rights when he's chairing his committee? What are our rights? I mean, I thought it was a valid question that we ought to know.
Well,
Right.
that's, I just wanted clarity. I'm not,
Well,
and I agree. I think that if Zach's out in the audience during one of my Parks and Recs committee, I want him to come up and give me his idea. Granted, I don't want him speaking for 30 minutes.
Right.
But
But you as chairman have that authority, and one thing I'll say, and I've said this privately, I've said this to several members here, each of us has our own style. Whoever the chair is or the mayor is, I respect their right to do as they wish. I may have my own preference. I'm a come on want to speak, but if a chair wants to say there's not going to be any talk tonight, I respect them doing that. I may disagree, but I certainly respect the chair has the authority to preside how he or she
But the
wishes.
discussion was not whether to speak or not, it was disruptive members of the audience.
That's-
So a committee meeting did get disruptive. I had not heard about this. Okay,
It was in my office, it was out of control. It was
in your office.
In my office.
Oh,
It was,
okay.
It
So
was
there was
way
concern that it may carry over.
I wasn't concerned.
Okay.
Members of the committee approached me and said, what do
Okay.
we do when that happens? What do we do with
Okay.
a disruptive
Okay.
person in the meeting? It wasn't, you can speak or not speak, it was ugly.
Okay.
Well,
That's what-
I
Now I get it,
obviously,
okay.
obviously this was my request. I mean, I was told there would be a ruckus here. Okay, so I thought I was doing my due diligence
Okay.
by finding out what is proper, because we thank the Lord and praise God, we've got great citizens, we haven't had that. But I got a phone call from someone that said, I'm gonna tear the place apart now.
okay.
So,
Well, one thing I do recall, and again, I'm not trying, and I may be wrong, I do remember this going about 5 years ago. I believe there was a motion made by council, and I don't care because I don't view the mayor as having power, but either request for a specific, unless it was, if a new legal action was arising, you know, I know a lot of times you do work with Philip on zoning and stuff all the time, and once you keep doing
we
that.
request legal
But
services.
does an individual member of council have that authority, or does the council as a whole have that authority? And I thought
We
of,
gave the town manager that authority.
Okay.
And I asked him the
think
question,
wasn't
he
it-
couldn't answer
Well,
it,
it
so
was
he
a list
got,
drawn up that was
President-
We
typed
at
up.
one time
It's a
now, we at
previous
one time
council.
had a motion to pass this council that, committee chairman
okay?
had the right to, request
ring a bell?
legal.
It's co-
I'm not disagreeing
I thought
with
it was
Attorney
president,
guidelines that
council,
were the
mayor,
previous
Philip.
council,
previous
not this
council. So the previous council addressed that.
And it was something that was typed up.
Can we
in-
just try to find that one next
Yeah, I'll
time,
send it to you.
just to find out what it is, and I'm,
Well, I can remember very plainly.
okay.
well, we're in open session, we're gonna settle it. We're sitting here, let's settle it.
Well, she wants to, I mean,
Let's
it-
settle the issue
you can
is,
make a new, I mean, I guess you have to make, well, before, I'd ask you to delay, because there may be a procedure needed to rescind a motion that's on the books, and I'm not sure, I do not remember what it is. And I
think
trust
there
your
needs to
memory,
be
but I'd like to
clarity.
have, I'd like to have the written motion.
I'd like to see that on the agenda on the
Yes, October
16th, I'd
16th.
like the
that's fine.
clarity.
Yeah, clarity is
Now that
good.
we have paid for the brief, may we have it?
Very good, very good. Anything else to come before the council tonight?
No, I mean, we paid for the brief, can we have
Oh,
it?
you want the brief now? Absolutely, yes,
Sure.
yes.
Yes, the
I'm sorry.
answer is this. There is an exception. Okay, let's start off at the beginning. First Amendment of the Constitution says you have the right to free speech. That applies in public bodies because you all are part of the government. So it wouldn't necessarily apply in a private setting because they aren't a government and they don't always have to comply with the Bill of Rights and things like that. But the First Amendment says free speech. That applies here. But there are always exceptions to the amendments. There are exceptions to free speech. And one of those exceptions are, if things get to a disruptive point, if there is disruption, if there is a breach of peace, things like that. And there are certain lines about what is and is not disruptive. It has to essentially, incite anger, incite violence, things like that. It's not just, there's a line between content versus disruption. It can't just be content that, isn't favorable or even content that is, lewd and things like that.
How
to
about
a certain
profanity? Because I cut a
extent.
guy off. We had a meeting that was going, I thought fine. All of a sudden, someone dropped a barnyard epithet, and I was just like gabbling.
Yeah.
Constitutionally, was I in?
Yes, as
Okay.
long as it is your opinion that
Just
you
yelling it.
are inciting violence, disruptive, inciting disorder, you're fine.
Okay.
I think we've got the intelligence to understand that line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you, what do we have as a mayor during these proceedings and as a chairman or chairwoman in our committees? Can we remove an individual? Do we need to adjourn? What do we need to do?
I think the presiding officer, he or she feels, you can say,
Yes.
Chief, that's enough. Please remove him. or
Yes,
her."
you can remove them, you can adjourn, you can, tell them to sit down, you can do any of those things. Because frankly, when it gets to the point where your speech is not protected anymore, and it gets to that point, really, you're looking at a charge of disorderly conduct anyway, which is a Class 1 misdemeanor.
Well,
I was on-
I think we all get the gist of it. To be honest, I don't want to spend any more money on it, so.
Well,
thank you.
but your fees are very reasonable. Okay, and I know at one time where our legal bills were annually, and yours are much more reasonable. And you're very nice about sitting here, very polite. Because if I'd known you were going to be this late, I'd have had you go first. And I'm sorry.
It's fine.
But I was not aware that you had intel. I was not aware there was intel that there was going to be trouble. I mean, I knew there was some anxiety.
Well, I'll be honest with you, there's been times in my committee meetings that I would have liked to have known this information, because I would have had the individual removed.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody on my committee would have objected.
Objected. Okay.
Okay? When you got someone in the audience abusing us while we're in the middle of a discussion, or there's a motion on the floor, I didn't want to have to tolerate that
I understand.
anymore. So,
I understand. Thank you very much.
You want to take her fee out of my check? Help yourself.
We get paid in December, I think. Anything else coming for the council? We're going to meet again in 12 days. Thank you all for coming out. I want to thank the citizens. I really like the spirit tonight. Tough issues.
Hey, Phil,
I got any I might take, I didn't get a text message, did I?
I don't know how long it's been up under there.